Good morning, everybody. My name is Isaac Martin. I'm the Municipal Liaison for the State Attorney's Office, and would like to recognize all the outfits that are here and the chiefs that are here. I want to thank Mayor Casanas Cross from the City of Glenarden, Chief Stone on behalf of Monica Casanas, Mayor Monica Casanas, the town of Colma Manor, Mayor Keith Sindor, Lower Maryland. And also want to thank Rod Bars, Town Administrator, on behalf of Mayor Gant. Also Chief Tyrone Collinson, Williamsburg Police Department, City Council Member Custa Oriata, Prince County, and also Mayor Kelly Potter from Seat Pleasant, and also Erica Turner, the County Executive Office. Thank you all for making this happen.
I'll have you guys sit right behind the podium. State Attorney. Yes. On both sides. I think we can get a couple more people on this. There we are. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. I want to thank, in particular, Christine and Clay Gregory, who are the founders and owners of Metalworks, where we are today. I actually came here a couple of years ago for their grand opening. This is a one-stop shop in the central part of our county to address families and individuals in need of mental health and addiction services. I want to thank them for their vision, for understanding the needs of our community, and delivering at a time when this crisis within our families is so real. Just a couple of weeks ago, I stood before many of you and spoke about the outcome of a bond hearing involving a mother who has been accused of shooting her 13-year-old daughter. And about a year ago, a little over a year ago, I had to stand at another bond hearing where a mother and her daughter were accused of killing, dismembering, and attempting to grill body parts of the grandmother. It's heartbreaking. These issues are heartbreaking. They're also considered domestic violence. But oftentimes when we think about domestic violence, we think of intimate partner relationships, couples, or people who share a child in common. But those are not the only relationships that can turn into violent relationships and ultimate tragedies. And so that's why the term family violence, we think, best incorporates what we are seeing in our communities. Violence in the family is different in a sense because we're talking about people who are related to each other in some way. So the messaging that we send has to look and feel different. You cannot tell someone that you can leave your violent or dangerous situation when the abuser in the home is your child, or a sibling, or a parent. That's a different conversation. It's different resources that are needed, different messaging that is needed, and different protocols that are needed when responding to these types of events. And so let me start by sharing some of what brought me here, including those cases that I just talked about. From 2022 to 2023, we saw a rise in domestic violence homicides. In 2022, there were 14. In 2023, there were 22. And of the 14 in 2022, 8 were intimate partner and 6 were family violence cases. But in 2023, when that number rose to 22 deaths, only 7 were intimate partners and 15 were other familial relationships that ended in tragedy. Today, there are approximately 19 domestic-related deaths, and about half are intimate partner and the other half are family. So what we're seeing is a rise in tragedies involving family members, people who are related to each other. And this is a huge concern to us. We are also seeing an increase from 2022 to 2023 in felony assaults. There were 342 in 2022 and 486 in 2023. So we're seeing not only a rise in homicides involving these familial relationships that are not intimate partner, but also in assaults. Another number, I had a really wonderful discussion with the chief judge of our district court about this issue. And another number that she brought up to me that's indicative of what we're seeing in our households is that in 2009, there were about 209 wrongful detainer cases where people were staying in a property and the owner wanted them to leave. But in 2023, there were 596. And this number was really driven by elderly parents who wanted their adult children to leave their home because they were in fear for their lives. So these are concerning numbers. But the good news here in Prince George's County is that we do know how to deal with issues. We take these issues head on. We don't just talk about it, we do something about it. When I became state's attorney, we were dealing with intimate partner homicides at record numbers. However, throughout my tenure, we saw a decrease in intimate partner homicides by over 40%. And we believe that part of that was due to the interventions and the legislation that we got introduced to make strangulation, which is the most lethal form of domestic violence, a felony offense. That has led to a stark reduction in intimate partner deaths. However, we're still seeing deaths in the home when it comes to other family members. And so like we did with respect to intimate partners, we are not only going to focus on it by talking about it, we are developing a protocol, a family violence protocol here in Prince George's County, similar to the strangulation protocol that we develop for first responders and others who address family violence situations. So we are taking that model that we know works, but applying it to this issue of family violence. It will look a little different because we're dealing again with different family dynamics. But the goal is to connect individuals to services and also to hold those abusers accountable for their actions. It's going to look different, like I said, because in some of these cases we're talking about minor children who are abusive for a variety of reasons. And oftentimes it can be tracked back to mental health issues and addiction issues. The drugs that we're seeing in our community, even the marijuana, is different. And the effects on the brains of our young people is real and it's stark. And so that's why we have come together as a group, because this situation has to be addressed holistically. We have law enforcement partners, and my main partner in this, and I just appreciate our sheriff, John Carr, so much. Let's give him a round of applause. He's a true leader on the issue of mental health. That is the toughest subject and issue to deal with. Having to deal with how someone thinks, and often driven by how they feel about themselves or other issues that we don't quite understand. We don't know what drives people to behave in certain ways, but they take that on every single day. And our police chiefs, thank you all so much for being here. You will hear from the chief of the Prince George's County Municipal Chiefs Association or Chiefs Association shortly, and he'll talk to you about the partnership that we share and their what they see and their goals here today. The interagency protocol that we're setting up is going to take a lot of time and effort. We will be training every single police agency within our county on this protocol, which starts when a call is made to 911. Because the questions that are asked by the call takers will direct those who are responding on the appropriate questions to ask and the appropriate interventions and services to provide. We will also have resource packages that we will provide to our first responders, because sometimes people are not ready to share what's happening in their homes, right? They're not ready to share at that moment. They may be willing to share at a later time, and so we want them to have the resources needed in order to do that. There will be a partnership, of course, with our hospital, because they are so important to us. They take care of those who are suffering from injuries as a result of this abuse, and we want them to ask similar questions as they would to someone who they think is in a abusive intimate partner relationship. They need to begin asking those questions to family members, especially those who they may see more than once. And so this is really going to be a collaborative, just multifaceted effort to determine what are the causes of the violence going on in the home, and the resources, connecting those individuals and those families with the resources that are needed in our community in order to help those families be stronger and better. I'm very happy to have partnered with all of these individuals here today. You'll also hear from our council member who has a very important messaging campaign as well. There is no one message that's going to reach everyone. There are so many people who need our help, and we're just hoping that one of our messaging campaigns will reach those who really need it. And so while we can't say things all the time, or our messaging can't always be lead, we don't need to be in that violent situation because of the dynamics of the family. Our message is simple: say help. Hashtag say help. And we're asking people to say help, whether they are the ones who are experiencing the abuse or they are the abuser. There is no judgment if you ask for help. There is no judgment if you ask for help. So next, I'd like to turn to someone, and really his story is one of the reasons why I'm here today. Mr. Oxley had a case in my office. I won't talk about it. I'll let him talk about it, but it's a heartbreaking case that really, I think, sends, and is the example of why we need a protocol around family violence and why we need to advertise resources in our community to address mental health, and why, quite frankly, we need to advocate for a long-term treatment facility in our county. We can no longer only rely on acute care treatment. It's great, it's wonderful, we need that as a stopgap, but long-term, sometimes individuals cannot live safely at home. That's the reality of it. That's the reality. There are some families where their family members are suffering from such mental health struggles, and that they present a danger to those in their household that it is not safe for them to be there. We need to have places for families like that too. And so as part of this collaborative to the work that we will do today, which is educating people on the resources we have in the community, training our law enforcement partners on our new protocol. We will also advocate at the county level, state level, and the federal level for resources to build a long-term care facility here in Prince George's County for people who truly need it, where they can be close to their families. They can be close to their families because we still love our family members, right? And we want to be close to them, but we also don't want to be abused or hurt or potentially killed by them either. And so those are the tough situations, those are the tough issues that we are addressing here as a collaborative. And so, if you don't mind, Mr. Oakley, if you could come up, tell your story and what you believe is needed here.
Sure. Thank you, Honorable State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy. To everyone that's assembled today, law enforcement, to the media, to Malika Jackson, who's my partner in real estate and business and everything that we do. I give honor first to God, who's the creator of my life, to the Holy Spirit. I say shalom, assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. Before I get into the story, I have a few minutes, I want to read something real quick. From Matthew 10:28. I'm not a religious person, or I'm a spiritual person. God said, those who worship me must worship me in spirit and in truth. For it is not ye that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And the brother shall deliver the brother up to death, and the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents, and cause them to be put to death. And they shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. But he that endureth to the end shall be saved. That's in Matthew 10:28. This is the time that we're in right now, and it's real. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, that is accepted guidance and discipline as his representatives, for this is right. For obedience teaches wisdom and self-discipline. Honor, esteem, value as precious your father and your mother, and be respectful to them. This is the first commandment with the promise, so that they may be well with you, and that you may have a long life on earth. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. Do not exasperate them to the point of resentment with demands that are trivial or unreasonable or humiliating or abusive, nor by showing favoritism or indifference to any of them, but bring them up in elderly loving kindness and the discipline of the instructions of the Lord. And that's from Ephesians 6. The reason I bring that forward is because what's going on now has been going on since the beginning of time. And yet now we're in this dispensation of this manifestation of we seeing it happening every day more and more and more. My name is James Robert Oxley Jr. I was born I'm a Washingtonian. I met my wife in DC in 94. We got married in 97. We moved to Prince George's County in 98. We started building a life. I had a son prior to getting married. I said I'd never do that again. So 8 years into my marriage, we had our first child. Then we ended up having 5 kids. We had 4 boys and 1 girl. In 0505, I joined the Maryland National Guard. Joined the Maryland National Guard. 2007, I was deployed to Iraq, where I was hit by a roadside bomb. Survived that. When I first branded, I was built up from the ground up in Upper Marlboro. And then with my GI Bill, bought another house, rented that house out. And in the midst of it, our kids were grown. And I'll get straight to the point. I'm also a retired staff sergeant, medical retired, 2022. Got my MBA in real estate development in 2022 as well. And that brings me to 2021. One of our children, the third child, he grew up little short guy. You know, he was a pretty handsome little guy. And oftentimes we get picked on and things like that. And we found out, he would get in trouble, found out it wasn't him. I'm just fast forwarding. Get to high school, put him in Chop Junior. He went on Chop Junior. All our kids had a life that we wish we'd have had when we was kids. They wanted for nothing. They had everything. We both had our degrees. We were church going. We were great parents to our children. Everywhere we went, people said, we love how your kids, the mannerism and everything. We took them on trips, gave them the experience of life. However, fast forwarding, he gets to high school, Frederick Douglass, and he gets involved with some kids And we allowed him to get a job and let him play on the football team. And one day I went to pick him up from work and I smelled marijuana. And I said, hey, you smoking? He said, no, I was sitting in the car with my friend who was smoking. I said, come on, kid. I grew up in DC. I know you can't smoke it. I get home, share it with my phone, share it with my wife. And she grabs his iPad, he grabbed his phone, started going through it, and we realized he was living a double life. He was the sweetest kid at home and around everybody else. But outside of our home, going to school, he was smoking, he was doing all kinds of things. So we started shutting things down. We took the iPad, started monitoring, and I just saw this countenance and expression on his face that I never seen before. And I shared with her, I said, I do not trust him anymore. I said, something is wrong. So she was the disciplinarian. I was the one who just stood there, made sure he didn't do anything to her, whatever. I never struck my kids. She was the disciplinarian. I just stood there because as I read in the scriptures, it's a reason that I chose not to strike my kids. But discipline them in other ways, taking things from them, sitting them down. Anyway, so she started taking everything away. She let him go live with her mother. And when she went to live with the mother would take him to school, I'll pick him up. So he was on the bus and getting high and all that stuff. November time frame came, it was snow. My other oldest son, he went to the Air Force, so she wanted all the kids home. So we let him stay home. And then Frederick Douglass and the schools closed down because of COVID and snow. My wife got sick on January 5th, before fast forward through. Got sick on January 5th. Took her to Southern Maryland Hospital, stayed in overnight, realized it was just a bad cold. She didn't have the COVID or anything like that. Picked her up on the 6th. We come home, we were fasting, in our fasting period. And I asked the boys, go ahead and clean up. I'm ready to fix some vegan food. While we're fasting, my wife went upstairs to take a shower. I was sitting on the couch here, my 8-year-old sitting down there, and my 2-year-old at the time was on the floor, on a Minnie Mouse couch. And I was on the computer, so my wife came back down, and she came, touched me on the head, and said, best friend. That was her last words, best friend. She went to the bathroom, came back, sat down. I'm on the computer, and all I can hear is pow, pow. I said, oh my gosh, I said, the TV is awfully loud. It's a big television. So I looked and I see my wife sit up, and then I heard her shout again, I see her sit back. And then I look and I see a silhouette of somebody, an image. And he turned real quick and he just fired, shooting my 8-year-old twice. And I looked, I said, oh my gosh, that's my son. So I didn't care. I just dropped my computer, I jumped up, I went at him. And he had the gun point blank and he fired pow, pow, at me. And that's why I give honor to God who's the creator of my life, because I'm standing probably where that camera is, and we're right here. And I'm coming at him, and he fires point blank. And the bullet strikes me here and in my side. So that was nothing but the spirit of God. That bullet could have hit me here in the arm and take me out. I'm in the military, so I know what point blank and the body shots can do to you. And then he shoots me twice. I realized that I didn't know that I was shot at the time. I seen the gun drop, and I chased him around, because I have two ways to go around my house. I chased him around, he went around one way, I went around the other way, caught him at the door, and I was wrestling him, trying to get him on the floor. And what I realized is that when I tried to grab him with this arm, I couldn't. I said, oh man, he must have shot me. So I'm getting a little dizzy, so the Lord said, let him go. So I let him go, he flies out the back door, shut the door. I go tend to my wife, I realized that she had expired, and my 8-year-old son had expired. And then this time, my other son was upstairs, he came down, said what happened, I told him, I'm on the phone with the paramedics, I'm on the phone with the police. And they came just like that. They came in, and we had to call the police before, because he went down to some friend's house and was stoned out his brain. And the officer came up and was talking to him, and he was standing around, he's like, looking around, he's like, kid, he said, you got this big house you live in, you got these wonderful parents, why are you down in a house that nobody would want to live in? But that's what he wanted, you know? So I look at these kids, those kids that don't have anything, not all the time, but don't have anything, oftentimes gravitate to those kids who don't have anything, then they run amok and they want to rob, steal, kill, and everything else. But in this situation, this kid had everything, and yet it wasn't enough. And he wanted the life of the kids that was doing mischief. It was more appealing to him. Even after I shared my life story with him of being in the streets of DC and what I went through and how God brought me out of that. So in the midst of that, they take me out, they fly me to Maryland, Southern Maryland, and then they medevac me to the new hospital where I received treatment. And now he's incarcerated. And here's the thing that I know as mental health therapists in here. Here's the thing what I wouldn't have known is that when he was in Cheltenham, he passed out. They took him to Georgetown. When they took him to Georgetown, they found out he had all these lesions on his brain in a form of, some rare form of MS that was developed. We found out he was vaping, he was doing all kinds of things, so we don't know what he was ingesting that could have caused these lesions on the brain. So these kids that's running amok and that's doing what they're doing, oftentimes could have some sort of brain damage. Something manifested in their brain, and then when they ingest the drugs or whatever, they don't see, because when I grabbed him, his face was, he didn't have any emotions.
Expressionless.
Yes, thank you.
Expressionless.
Expressionless, thank you. It was in my brain, couldn't get out. Expressionless, and he it was nothing there. He wasn't there, it wasn't him. He wasn't there, and I knew it was a problem. And yet, we tried, prior to getting up to this point, I know my minutes is up, prior to getting to this point, when he was going through, we tried to reach out to everyone. I'm in the military, I reached out to the military, I reached out to the police that came to our house. He said, the only thing we can do is incarcerate him. You can't keep incarcerating mental illness. He's never been arrested. You can't keep incarcerating the mental illness. They need a facility. I was trying to find a facility where he can go, still get his education, get mental therapy, drug counseling, and all kinds of things in a safe environment where he can grow up and come out of that childhood state and be like, not that what I was going through, now I'm a man or I'm a grown up, now I'm healed. But if we don't do that, if we don't find this, we're gonna keep having these issues. The state's attorney here now, or whoever may replace it when she promotes up, it's gonna keep going through the same problem. We know what she it's the same problem. You know, we're gonna run into the same issue. So what you say, Honorable Aisha Braveboy, is that yes, we need some type of facility. There's a lot of buildings. I'm a real estate agent, Malica's real estate agent. There's a lot of buildings that we can transform in the Prince George's County or surrounding counties of Maryland to stop putting our youth in it and give them a chance. Get them away from the streets, get them away from the drugs, let them detox their body, detox their mind, and put them in a positive environment. My name is James Robert Loxley. That's my story. I'm sticking to it, and God is great. Love you all.
Imagine me having to be being the prosecutor, having to figure out how to find justice where the individual who is the next of kin, who we would be consoling and seeking services for, is also the individual responsible for the respondent in the case. That's tough. And what does justice look like? Oftentimes in family cases, there is no real justice. It's just whatever we can do to try to make things better. And we don't want to be in that situation. We really don't. And that's why we want to focus on prevention, which is really about how we respond when we know something is wrong. And so, Sheriff, great partner. He's my main collaborator in this, and I appreciate the work that you always do working.
Good morning, all. How are you today?
Good morning.
I am just, I'm happy to be here, and in one aspect, and in another aspect, I am tired. As October highlights Domestic Violence Awareness Month, my predecessor 11 years ago started Purple Light Nights, which we had last week. We now expanded that to other counties. But those stories that we just heard, we're hearing too consistent. This is something that is consistent in our community. So before I even get started about what we plan on doing and how we're going to be moving forward, I first want to thank our wonderful state's attorney, who's always been receptive and always been in the front of issues and problems and wanting to be very proactive instead of reactive to issues. I want to thank our councilwoman, our mayors here, our municipal mayors, and also our chiefs, as this is a collaborative effort in order to address domestic violence here in our community of Prince George's County. When taking office almost a year and a half ago, COVID, we were averaging a little bit over 2,000 pieces of protective orders a month here in Prince George's County. Unfortunately, that number still is consistent to where we're around 2,000 a month. Last month alone, we had 84,000 citizens go in and out of that courthouse because they had some sort of legal or court-related issues. Many of those were actually dealing with homicides, murder trials. A lot of them were dealing with mental health, as we're averaging a little bit over 100 emergency petitions a month. So when we do talk about domestic violence, we've always focused on this intimate partners. But we really need to look at our families, because our families are hurting. They're hurting. And there is no jurisdiction, there is no city, there is no county. When you look at it from a state perspective, we are all going through the same things. And this is something to where, what are we going to do in order to make this better? Collaborative efforts like this, #NoMore, ran by the councilwoman. These are initiatives that not only involve everybody up here as far as a collaborative effort, but there's something to where we're all doing our piece in the community. This is a community problem. This is something to where, as our families, they're hurting. There is no manual about how to be a parent. And if I have multiple children and I have one that's not right, what am I doing with the rest that need my attention, that need my care? A lot of our citizens are looking to us as public safety, looking to us as our community leaders, and they're looking for answers. They're looking for resources. We have resources. We're working and partnering with nonprofit organizations. We have government organizations. You have our city and our municipal agencies. They all have resources that they're giving. But the people they need to know that consistently somebody's going to be there with them. Because it is very hard for you to go through an issue like the story that we just heard, and to think that I can go through this and go through this court process, and then now that the court process is over, everything is done. Those scars will never go away. You will always deal with this. And this is something to where this collaborative effort of us coming together as a community, no matter what agency you're with, no matter what jurisdiction you may be with, this is how we solve our issues and problems. So I just like to say I thank everybody up here for allowing me to partner with you and to just say, #SayHelp. Because when you know that there's an issue and a problem, and we keep talking about those issues and problems, and we keep doing the same thing, thinking that we're going to get a different result, they call that insanity. So therefore, what are we as a community going to do to change this behavior in our community? And this is all connected together. As we talked about youth violence, the carjackings, issues in our schools, they start at home. They start at home. Our parents in our communities, our seniors are asking for our assistance and help. And this is a way that we start to do so. So I'm happy to partner with everybody up here and anybody in our community so that we can eradicate domestic violence, not only intimate partners, but family violence. So I do say again, #SayHelp.
Thank you. Thank you. Our partners who will be speaking, they will limit their comments to 2 minutes because we know we have several of them, and they'll hit their main points and what services they provided. I'd like to turn it over to my great partner, our councilwoman, Crystal Oriana.
I'm Councilman Crystal Oriana. I have the pleasure of representing District 7 on the Prince George's County Council. And again, I want to first say thank you for the work that you're doing and expanding the conversation past just domestic violence. I think sometimes this goes forgotten and not talked about. I do want to highlight the No More campaign that I'm working in partnership with the State's Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Office. And it's really bringing all of us together to say no more do we want to see this violence here in Prince George's County and across the state. So we have a virtual resource guide that has access to shelter services, resources, counseling, and we're asking organizations that if you don't see yourself listed, give us your information so that we can add you to the campaign. We also have an awareness campaign around educating people about what it looks like. Because a lot of people don't understand the signs and what to look for. And then also educating people that there is no stigma. A lot of times when survivors feel like they're alone, they're isolated, people are gonna think, why did you stay? Why didn't you leave? And so when we talk about 1 out of 4 women, 1 out of 9 men experiencing domestic violence, we know that they're not alone. As a survivor of domestic violence, one of the things I'm most proud of is legislation that we're moving on the state level, which is the Healing Scars Act that's going to be sponsored by Delegate Ashanti Martinez. This piece of legislation is going to transform when we talk about restitution and the idea of healing the scars of survivors. I was inspired by this legislation because years after leaving my domestic violence relationship and healing and having a beautiful partner and a beautiful son, I'm still reminded of the violence every time I look in the mirror because I have scars that are so damaged that without plastic surgery, sorry, they'll never go away. And it reminds me of so many victims that every moment they look at themselves, they're taken back to the trauma that they've experienced. And so what this legislation will do is say that it's mandatory for insurance companies to cover plastic surgery for our domestic violence survivors. It'll also work to amend the Victims of Crime Act to include plastic surgery costs as a resource and mental health services for those that are not insured. And lastly, the bill will look at restitution for survivors and making sure that when our abusers are taken to justice by the state's attorney, there's mechanisms for restitution. We have over $8 million in lost wages for survivors of abuse, just alone, not talking about mental health services or restitution for other areas. So I'm excited about this campaign, but we can't do it alone. We need everyone to join the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's office, myself, Delegate Ashanti Martinez, all of the people standing here today, so that we can make sure we get this across the finish line. And hopefully, this is a piece of legislation, not here just in Maryland, but that the nation will follow us in doing this. So thank you.
We will now hear from the president of the Prince George's County Police Chiefs Association, Chief Tyrone Collins.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Honorable State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy, elected officials, esteemed guests, and to our partner, Sheriff John Carr. It is a great honor and a privilege to serve as the Chief of Police for the Bladensburg Police Department and as President of the Police Chiefs Association of Prince George's County. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Madam Braveboy, a tireless advocate for all residents and victims affected by domestic violence in Prince George's County and beyond. Her unwavering dedication has earned her deep respect throughout the county, particularly among members of the Police Chiefs Association. For over 2 decades, Madam Braveboy has fought for justice, ensuring that victims of these heinous acts receive the support that they need. As October marks the beginning of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we proudly join Madam Braveboy and our partner, Sheriff Carr, in launching the new collaborative initiative to end and eradicate domestic violence. We recognize that domestic violence does not discriminate based on gender, identity, sexual orientation, race, or social, economic status. We are thankful for Madam Braveboy's courage, tenacity, and commitment to being a voice for those affected by domestic violence. She is dedicated to eradicating the abuse that victims have endured for far too long. Whether it's victims facing their abuser or a child fearing for their safety, Madam Braveboy's strong approach to addressing domestic violence and her commitment to justice make Prince George's County a safer place for everyone. Madam Braveboy, thank you once again for your leadership and your unwavering dedication to protecting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now hear from the CEO of the Community Crisis Services, otherwise known as 988, Tim Jansen. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning / now afternoon to everyone. I'm Tim Jansen. I'm the CEO of Community Crisis Services in Hyattsville, Maryland. Our organization has been doing crisis intervention, suicide prevention, domestic violence prevention and intervention for 55 years. 988 is not new. It's a new phone number. It's a new way to connect people that is easy to remember. The hotline used to be a long 10-digit number that no one could remember. So the feds came together and turned it into 988. So like 411, 311, 911. 988 is your call to talk with somebody to get help. All you gotta do is pick up the phone. They don't need your name, where you're calling from. They may ask that, but you don't have to tell them. It's a great way to start a conversation about what might be going on. I sit back and I listen to the stories that I've heard, and I recognize the scars that people have shared, and it's amazing, and the strength that it shows to get up here and say those things is amazing, because these stories help everyone else who has a story, because most of us have a story. 988 is the suicide and crisis line. That doesn't mean you have to be having thoughts of suicide to call, or even be in crisis. I'm worried about somebody, so I'm going to call. One of the things that we all need to, as Michelle Obama would say, do something about is get involved, make a call, ask a question, see if there's a resource. One of the great things about 988 and your crisis center here in this county, we answer on the phone in English and in Spanish 24 hours a day. You can text or chat. You can communicate video chat with ASL for our deaf and hard of hearing residents in the county. We have lots of them. Lots of ways to connect. I will share with you that one of the aspects of family violence that is often overlooked is suicide. Suicide is family violence. I lost my mom to suicide 4 years ago. I have scars. I don't look in the mirror and see them all the time. But when I see her picture, sometimes that's what I think. And lots of people will say suicide is not an issue in my community. Wrong. It's an issue in everyone's community, and it is family violence. So thanking everyone that's here for everything you're doing. Get 988 out there. We will answer the phone. Average speed to answer is about 30 seconds. We will answer your text, your chat, in Spanish, in English. When I was watching Michelle Obama's speech last month and she said, do something, we all know what that meant, by the way. But what she also meant is get involved, ask a question, share your story, help somebody out. So I could talk about this all day, as you can tell, but I'm getting in trouble and I'm getting in trouble. So thank you all very much, and thank everybody here for all you do.
That 988, though it is considered a suicide prevention and crisis line, they can connect families to resources. So that's an easy number to call, because sometimes it's difficult to call 911, but you can call 988. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Denise McCain, who's the director of our Family Justice Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. To Madam State's Attorney, I first and foremost want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. Oftentimes we see problems here. We talk about problems, but no one does anything about the problems. And when we have leaders who are in a position to effectuate change, it's commendable. So I thank you for that, because this is real. And my heart goes out to you, sir, for your loss. And I'm sure your family is still dealing with it, but I'm glad that we're here where we are today. And I know it's not an isolated incident. We are hearing about the numbers. I'm now the parent of adult children, but I have a who at one time could have been your son, but for interventions and people who were there to support me raise my children as a single mother. And fortunately, the Air Force was there. I remember the day that I took him in for his testing. I was just praying that any marijuana that was in the system was no longer there, so he would get in. So I certainly relate to you and understand what this is about. But this is a real issue, and you know, I'm grateful for the partnership that we have. I just met with Sheriff Carr yesterday, I believe, and we talked about the need to make changes here and to put policies and processes in place to assure that we are actually doing the work that we do. Here, where we are at the Family Justice Center, we are also that one-stop shop. We're that resource for families that are suffering, survivors. We traditionally have worked with intimate partner violence, but the one group where we have seen needing our help is really seniors. We have a number of elders who come to us, and their perpetrators are family members. And just like was pointed out, they are trying to get help. Their children, nieces, nephews are abusing them, taking advantage of them. So this problem is real, and this project is really going to make a difference. So we're just grateful to be here to partner with you. I thank all of you for what you do here, because this is a community issue. As with most, it's collective collaboration. We have to do this together as a community because it's a real problem. And while someone may think it's not me, it does really go into the community at large. So again, I thank you for your leadership and for all of you the work that you do here. Thank you.
Next we will hear from Sandy Timmons, Executive Director of the House of Group.
Hi everyone, I'm Florence Aisha Braveboy. Unfortunately, Sandy couldn't be here today, but I'm going to be speaking on behalf of House of Group Maryland. Good morning. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the incredible partnership that this initiative has. We're so grateful for the state's attorney for extending this invitation and for recognizing the value of working together and making a real difference for the people in Prince George's County. At House of Groups, our administrative office is based in Baltimore City, but our reach extends beyond. We are proudly serve not only Baltimore, but also Baltimore County, Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. In fact, 18% of the 11,000 people we serve annually come from Prince George's County. That's about 2,000 individuals each year who rely on our services in the community. We've been dedicated to supporting Prince George's County for nearly 2 decades, providing not just shelter resources, but also crucial clinical counseling services and legal representation. Our presence includes work in 2 courthouses in the county, ensuring that survivors of domestic violence have access to legal and emotional support that they need. We're eager to expand our services here and look forward to working more closely with the community together. Together we can create a lasting change, ensuring that no one in Prince George's County faces domestic violence alone. If you know or if you are experiencing intimate partner violence, please contact our hotline, which is 24 hours. Do not hesitate to reach out. Our numbers are 410-889-7884. Again, 410-889-7884. Thank you guys for being here today, and I am so happy to be standing with you guys today.
And thank you so much. And oftentimes, people think of House of Group, they think about intimate partner, victims of intimate partner violence. But when we started several months ago putting together this collaborative, House of Group said, count us in. We serve more than just intimate partner victims. And so that was something that I didn't even know. And so I'm grateful for the partnership from the House of Group. Before we hear from our last speaker, which is our host here, Metalworks, who's going to be represented by Dr. Ron Garrett. I know that Mayor Selena Panit has wanted to be here today. She is the president of the Municipal Mayors Association. She was unable to join us. And I know we have a few mayors here. If anyone wants to say a couple of words on behalf of the mayors, I would appreciate it. Our mayors can
Come on, all the mayors, come up here. I'm Mayor Kashina A. Cross, City of Glen Arm. Thank you, Madam State's Attorney. Thank you to Sheriff Carr. Thank you to our illustrious Krista Orana, who is the county council member. On behalf of the mayors, in her absence, Mayor Selena Benitez, who is the Prince George's County Mayors Association president. We do extend here as mayors and acknowledge that we not only have a deliberate responsibility to this program, but we are invested in this program because we are the leaders who shepherd the flock that is unfortunately impacted by this program. I stand here with our mayors that will also stand with this program, but we give another number, 88788. It is a domestic violence number that is associated also with 988. So you now have numbers that are associated that we will combat the problem. It's not just that we want to expose and criticize, but we want to heal and empathize. Because it could be any one of us. And the beauty of the stories that are shared today shows that every average citizen has a capacity for this to happen in their house. So don't think it's not you. So we are grateful, State's Attorney. We are grateful to Sheriff Carr. And we are grateful to Mayor Kelly, as well as our mayor from Laurel, for making sure that we definitely stand up for the Prince George's County mayors.
Thank you. Certainly not least, our host, and this is so important, and afterwards, I think we're going to get maybe a tour for those who can stay for a tour. This is a phenomenal facility. Dr. Ron Garrett, thank you.
My wife was looking at me frowning. She thinks I'm up here texting messages. I'm trying to make a few notes. So, I have a preacher's spirit, so I didn't want to get up here and get too long-winded. Amen? So my name is Dr. Ron Garrett. I serve as the Director of Reentry Health Services and Supports for Metalworks Behavioral Health. But I have to make it clear that I'm formerly known as inmate number 103-9005 because I served 20 years in the Georgia Department of Corrections. And what we're talking about here today, I was able to, I had the opportunity to descend from a place of freedom in the community to go and see what the impact that it's had on people's lives who do not have access to adequate behavioral health care. From 1998 to 2018, September the 4th was my 6-year anniversary being back in the community. But during those 20 years, I was in the Georgia system when the laws actually changed because the state, the federal government, was no longer willing to bear the expense of having full service residential behavioral health care treatment for our family. And they made the choice that a better place for them to be, a more cost-effective place for them to be, is in prison. I watched a 1,000-man prison transition to 500 beds of folks who did not have a diagnosis to 500 beds of a section of our prison that was called the mental health unit. Isn't that, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. So with that said, on behalf of Mr. Craig Gregory and Ms. Christine Gregory, I get to welcome y'all to Metalworks Behavioral Health. We are a full-service, Carr-accredited core behavioral health care agency. We serve about 425 clients per month, and I don't even like to use the word clients. I really prefer to use the word of our family members, because that's the way we approach the work that we do here at Metalworks Behavioral Health. What we do is based on the 8 dimensions of wellness, which is an evidence-based approach to providing services to people who need it. Our goal is not to rub a crystal ball and tell the individuals that come for services here what they need, because we understand that that our family members that come for our services, they are the experts in their own lives. I would like to say thank you to the state's attorney. I also get to serve as the site coordinator for Bowie State for the Second Chance Pell Grant program, which is a college degree program inside of Jessup Correctional Institute. This is going to be amazing to you. Guess who the most famous, well-beloved individual of the prison, guess who they want to come and visit? Our state's attorney. Because our state's attorney is known regionally and nationally as a state's attorney, her office works just as hard to give a man and woman an opportunity to have a second chance at freedom as she does with prosecuting those that need to go for a timeout for a little while, like I did. We also want to thank you to Sheriff Carr and all of the leaders that are assembled here today, because this cause is it's about our families. It's about our communities. And the only way that a difference can be made is that we all must get off of the bench and get into the game and be about providing the kinds of holistic programming that is needed for our loved ones to thrive in life. The story that Mr. James shared about his son, as tragic as it is unbelievable. The community would be just amazed at the fact. It's one thing for people to have a behavioral health care diagnosis and to commit a crime that would cause them to go to prison. It's something totally different to spend 15 years in prison, and the root cause of being in that environment was never treated. Society is amazed at why do people who go to prison come home and go back to criminal behavior. It is because of a lack of adequate behavioral health care services and reentry programming while incarcerated. Metalworks Behavioral Health is excited to join the state's attorney and everyone here as we provide a evidence-based approach to providing services to our families here in Prince George's County, so that each individual will have access to the life of dignity that each one deserves. She's going to be embarking with us on a new, she's got a new mission. Do you know how, and I'm going to close with this. We do know how May is National Mental Health Month, National Mental Health Awareness Month. You know what that means? What we do as a whole country, we point our finger and shine a spotlight on people who have a mental health diagnosis. I don't think that's fair. We should champion the rebranding of May to National Health and Awareness Month. And let's applaud those who know they need these services and are engaging in the services that they need. Really appreciate you all for coming out today. And again, if you have not walked through our facility at the conclusion of this press conference, please join us for a tour. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us, and to all of our speakers, we're going to open it up for a few questions. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in practice, what's going to now happen? So someone says help. What is going to happen in this community now?
So it depends on what the response is to. If it's to let's say a 911 call, then there will be a new protocol on the questions that will be asked by the call takers and the information then provided to the responding officers. When the officers respond, they will not only ask additional questions, but also have information to provide. We're getting these materials printed, and so hopefully in the next week or so, they'll have them. So they can provide folks with direct services because oftentimes in these situations, the family just wants it to stop, and then they don't want to pursue charges against their loved one, but they still need help. So we want them to have the resources to get that help. We also now have additional resources which we did not know we had, like the House of Room and like here in Metalworks that provide these wraparound services that now families will know there is somewhere for them to go. So this is an awareness campaign. It's a change in the way in which first responders will then respond to those. We will train all of our police agencies in this new response mechanism. We did that for strangulation, and we saw an over 40% decrease when it came to intimate partner homicides. And so we are hopeful that we will see similar results with this new protocol. Information is power. When people have information, they do better. Not everyone will take advantage of the situation, that happens, but a lot of them will. And if we can reach one more than we would have, it'll all be worth it for the people.
Has PGPD agreed to do this, and has dispatch agreed to do this?
PGPD has been, as part of our roundtable, we have met with them. We will be reaching out to the dispatchers, but we did that with our strangulation protocol as well. So it won't be so different than the trainings we have given them in the past.
You know, if you don't mind, can I just jump in
Yes.
right quick? I do just want to speak from the law enforcement, and we were just talking about that. You see the different municipalities here. You see New Carrollton, Coldwell Manor, see Pleasant Mayors, the Lowell, you see Glenarden, you see Bladesburg. We all sometimes work in our own silos when you're talking about a dispatch. So a call may be dispatched to the local municipality or to the PG Police Department, and we all have our protocol. We're trying to bring everybody together, so if you're dealing with an individual, one, our literature and information is always the same, but two, we can actually funnel them through the same process no matter where you may be throughout the county. We have a wonderful family justice center that, again, to be honest, in my opinion, I think it's still underutilized, even with the high numbers. They do a wonderful job. When we talk about the strangulation and the sexual assaults, the police department does a wonderful job in making sure they vet that information and they go through. But if it happens in a municipality, if it happens somewhere else outside of that, how do we connect all this stuff together to make sure it doesn't go through the cracks? And that's one of our problems, is that we have a lot of people working on the same issue and problem, but we're not coming together to make sure we're addressing it as a whole and together.
So you're gonna try to hand these things out?
Oh, yeah,
Essentially?
we'll get those out.
Tommy, is the police gonna have these to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
I have one question. I was a mobile responder for IMON under 988, and there was a few calls that I went on where there were youth involved that were abusing the parent.
Yeah.
And when we would come out, the officers don't do anything because, one, we didn't see it firsthand, so there's nothing that we can do. And then you're informing the parents, the mother, that she has to drive to go file charges herself. And then there's a confusion in that because of the age of the child. Knowing that he's using drugs, he has a mental health illness, but you can't even get into the hospital without an EP done. And then no one wants to do an EP because in that moment, he's not a threat to anyone when you come to the home. What do you do to stop that?
Yeah, so that is actually, and trust me, I just had that very issue over the weekend. Someone called that very issue, and so that is something that we are still working through. But this collaborative is really about not having all of the answers today, but being able to work through issues like that. And trust me, I understand that issue, and we do want our first responders to understand sometimes the stress that the parent is under. And there are things that they can do. And so we're going to empower them also with information so that they're not leaving it up to the parent and telling the parent they have to do X, Y, and Z. So that's something that myself, along with our sheriff, has definitely identified as an area of education that we can provide to our law enforcement.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes, Madam Secretary, another data point this past month, this is from Mail Reports, is that Prince George's County had the highest number of domestic violence protective orders filed as of September compared to all counties in the state. Why would you say, or just wondering, it's so concentrated here in all forms of domestic violence, and how do you believe this initiative would be effective to address that?
So when we look at those numbers, you also want to look at where we are as far as adjacent to some of the other counties. That number also counts those refiled. So you may have somebody that files a petition, starts the process. Unfortunately, that person does not live here in Prince George's County. They may live in Charles County or Washington, D.C. We can't go outside of the state to serve that order. And then if it's outside the county, we send it to those law enforcement agencies there. If it's not served, the court will continue that. And that's a whole new reissue, and it would actually come against those numbers as far as, hey, this is another protective order or another peace order. So we try to look and see exactly on the names and informations. And when you're dealing with somebody, let's say on a consistent basis where this case has been maybe continued twice, what are we doing to provide that additional assistance for that situation? Because if we are unable to serve that peaceful protective order and something happens, we're at fault, we're wrong. So we wanna make sure that we're able to try to get in front of it, but those numbers also include refiles and individuals who may not live here in Prince George's County.
Yes.
I just have one question. Do you have a ballpark idea of when these changes will start to roll out, when the community will start to see these changes?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna take some time to do the training of all of the municipalities. We'll try to work out a good schedule with our Municipal Police Chiefs Association leadership. But hopefully by the end of the year, we will have everyone trained. Hopefully before then, but certainly by then.
And I just have one more question, maybe this is for law enforcement. I've heard how, domestic calls can be some of the most dangerous calls that law enforcement has to deal with. In regards to training, have there been any talk around, focusing on de-escalation tactics or any other tactics when it comes to officers responding to these calls?
Good question. So yes, there have been several changes made to law and protocols for law enforcement to respond to. It's now mandated that we take the de-escalation training that every law enforcement officer in the state has to go through. In addition to being the president of the Police Association, I also serve on the council, the commission for the Maryland State Police Training Commission, where we pass these laws to make sure that it goes out statewide, not just in the county, statewide, that we mandate de-escalation be part of the protocols in every police department.
One additional question? Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think you mentioned earlier having a specific facility for combating domestic violence within family members. Is that something that's in the works?
So what I suggested is that we do need a long-term treatment facility. We don't have it. In fact, there's really not a region that could actually serve the volume of need that we have here in our community. That's something that we're gonna have to come together as a collaborative and push for, the resources for. Those resources may have to come from our federal government, and so educating our members of Congress on the needs here in Prince George's County. I remember years ago, when it was St. Elizabeth, was in DC, and it closed for so many different reasons, but the reality was one of those reasons wasn't because there was no longer a need. The need remained. And in fact, in so many ways, it has now grown because we're seeing different types of drugs impact the minds, especially of our young people, but older people too. It's causing a lot of violence. And then we also have now more guns than ever before, not only on our streets, but in our households. And so we just have to face the fact, again, that not everyone can live at home. That's the reality. Not everyone can live at home and the family is safe. And we have to focus on family safety. So thank you all so much, and
It's one thing when you have a situation arise at somebody's house to have law enforcement offer up information about the resources available, but I guess is this collaboration gonna be big enough that there are gonna be enough resources both in the immediate time and in the weeks to come that people can access what they need?
yeah, absolutely, and that's why the cards actually have the contact information for these services. So like Metalworks, this is a service provided directly to our community. Helsa Group provides direct services to our community. The Family Justice Center has for years provided direct services, and a lot of our seniors don't know that they can also access services there as well. 988, huge resource. Initially, I think the focus had been and thought about suicide, but now we know it's more than just suicide where people can call. So there are existing resources in our communities that are underutilized based on the need. And now we have said, okay, here are the resources. We've printed it out. We're giving it to you. We're handing it to you. We're letting you know what we currently have, but there's always going to be additional needs. I think ultimately we do need a long-term treatment facility here. I think the work that our executive has done has been tremendous in working with Doctors Hospital as well as opening the Dyer Center. I think all of those things are extremely important to address some of the acute needs of families. And some families just need those 48 hours, 72 hours, a short stay, but a lot of families need a lot more.
They won't run into a backlog somewhere where they have to wait weeks or months.
One quick comment.
Okay.
So Mental Works Behavioral Health, we are Mental Works Behavioral Health, we are an outpatient mental health clinic. And I can tell you that one of the most heartbreaking things that we run into through the course of our day is to have a diagnosis of one of our family members that needs long-term residential care. And there is no place in Prince George's County to refer them to. And in a county that's 1 million plus people, I mean, that's a tragedy.
So thank you all,
Thank you
and
again.
there's a tour that Dr. Garrett will lead for those who aren't.
Feedback. Yeah.